Welcome to today's episode where we're diving into the artistry and tradition behind one of the most iconic symbols of Western culture, the cowboy hat. Our guest, Heather Werkema Smith of Initial Impressions by HWS, is a talented custom cowboy hat designer known for transforming simple felt into wearable works of art. So from materials and fit to trends, colors, and truly one-of-a-kind custom stitching, she's built a reputation for creating hats that are as unique as the people who wear them. Whether you're in the show pen or just a lover of Western fashion, this episode is packed with information and insight. So Heather, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Amy.
Absolutely. So we're just going to get started by getting to know you a little bit, the lady behind the hats. Why don't you tell us about your personal horse journey?
So I've been showing horses longer than I can remember. I was really fortunate to be I have wonderful parents that were super involved in my life, but I have even more amazing grandparents who really took me on this horse journey right from the get-go. They were involved with horses for decades, and I came along the first grandchild, and they immediately sucked me in, so it's all their fault that I'm in this. And right from the get-go, I was showed on the quarter horse circuit from lead line on up. And all through my youth career, we hauled all over the place. It wasn't like showing, super big time or anything, but we did the Congress and the youth world and everything. Had the chance to ride some really great horses. We were largely do-it-yourselfers. My grandparents were what we like to quote professional amateurs, where they raised and trained or sometimes purchased young stock every year and trained them, and then would sell them. So every year we would have like a 2 and a 3-year-old. My grandpa would be breaking out the 2-year-old. My grandma would be riding the 3-year-old. And then I would tend to be showing the 3-year-old as well. So I grew up showing 3-year-olds in lead line and walk trot. And then we got one mare that happened to be particularly talented in the pleasure. And my grandma had put a superior Western pleasure award on her, and so we ended up keeping her and turning her into my very first all-around horse. And she's a super cute mover, wasn't very big, probably 15-1 too, and taught her the hunt seat and ended up being super she really did super well in the equitation. And so she was the first horse I nationally qualified for in the equitation and was able to compete on in that and got a superior in the eq. So that's where it really kind of all began for the all-around journey. And that was probably when I was like 12 or 13. And then I just continued through my youth career. And when I was done with my youth career, I knew I wasn't really done with horses, but my grandparents kind of drew the line and said, we're sort of done paying for it. So I had to come up with a way to keep it. I know. So rude. So I wanted to stay in it. And so I transitioned right into be a horse trainer and was training horses and giving lessons and hauling people down the road, including my youngest sister. At the time, I have 2 sisters, and I'm the oldest. My middle sister had kind of transitioned from the all-around to do a little bit more reining. And that's what my grandparents moved from the pleasure horses into the reiners, but I was really stuck in that all around. I bleed the all around. And I took my youngest sister, who was showing my last youth horse, down the road, and we did everything. Once she graduated from high school, I was pregnant with my second baby, and my husband, who never tells me no, didn't tell me no, but he's like, it kind of sucks you being gone all the time. And I was like, you know what? It kind of does. And we had this cute little house with an in-ground swimming pool. And I was like, I think I'm just going to stay home for a while. And my sister went to college, and I transitioned all my clients to other trainers. And I stayed home on horse show weekends, and it was wild. But it was a good break. Took a small break for a few years. We moved to Tennessee shortly. We're currently in Michigan. We're in Michigan at the time. And came back from Tennessee and decided I've got to get back into horses. So I had some friends that let me take some just some horses they had that weren't being used, and I'd bring them home and just go to some local open shows. And then I kind of started more kind of leasing the horses longer term. And then I was leasing a gelding, and it kind of ended badly. and the chance to buy my old youth horse came back. And my husband felt terrible for me because of what had happened with the lease horse. And so we bought him back at the ripe old age of 19. And I really got back into showing then. So again, I still started probably the one-day open shows because that's what I could afford. And I did pop over to a quarter horse show or two and showed in my very first amateur classes because I had never shown an amateur before. Since then, I have given up my amateur card probably 3 times. And because I love teaching, I do. I still say I want to be a horse trainer when I grow up. I just know better now. But I love to teach, and I did really want to do the judging. And so I got into judging a little bit, did some of that. And then we had this really cool horse we bought for my daughter, and I thought, I want to show in the equitation with this thing. So thankfully, at one point, they had changed the wait for your amateur card from 5 years to 3 years, so it didn't take as long. And I finally got to go show in the EC again. And at that point, I had transitioned. I had 2 daughters now, and they both got into showing. And I decided we were going to show paints instead of quarters. I just saw an opportunity to do the paint and the pinot option, and felt like it was something that was a little bit more accessible to someone of my income level. And so did that. We got a couple paint horses, and we really were still doing some big open shows. And then started going to our first pinot shows, and then eventually transitioned to paint. And now we've been pretty involved in the paint horse world for, 5 years now, 4 years. Both my daughters are world champions at the paint show, and it's amazing. I can't believe we've come this far. And to be frank, it's all because of this hat business that I made, which is unreal.
Wow. What a cool story to hear, just that thread of the horse industry through your entire life, thanks to your grandparents and support of your parents as well.
Yeah, and that's why I always use you to ask, what name I actually use, and I always go with another Werkema Smith because I know it's a mouthful, and most people can't pronounce Werkema, but it's because that's my grandparents' name, and it's super important for me, and Heather Smith is kind of boring anyway, so.
I love that, just giving them credit and acknowledging them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm excited to be sort of feeling as though I'm in what you called your hat lab today. Get to peep and sort of kind of shop over your shoulder. Yes. So tell us what you mentioned that the hat business was supplementing the horse business. So tell us how you got into designing custom hats.
So it was an accident, 100%. So when my daughter and we were showing at some local open shows, and I love horse show fashion, and the people that know me well know that I really don't like to look like everybody else. So I like to be a little bit different. And the colored hats, like there were a couple people out there like wearing a colored hat, like in the quarter horse world, but only the really, really good ones would dare do that. And I was like, what, I'm a red hat. And I looked into purchasing one, and I could not find one that I could afford because you're looking at going something custom, probably like back then. So it's different now. Going with like Greeley or somebody that could custom make you one shorties or something. Mm-hmm. And there was no way on the income that I had at the time that I could do that. And I saw, I found a lady who was quote unquote dyeing hats in Pennsylvania, and reached out to her and said, hey, I want a red hat. And I decided to get a purple hat for my daughter. Her favorite color is purple. So she told me, well, send me 2 white hats and I'll dye them for you. I'm like, cool. So I did that, and it was, super affordable. So I bought like some inexpensive hats that I could afford, sent them to her, paid her probably, $100 to do that. And so I get them back, and I have these colored hats, and I'm like super unimpressed. I was like, they were painted. Now I know the difference now. So they were brush painted, and I just thought it was okay from a distance. So it was totally fine, and I totally wore it, and everybody was like, oh my God, she's wearing a red hat, and I loved it. But I just knew, I was like, I could do this. And I have a terrible problem with being like, I could do that. probably better. It's a curse. So I can't buy anything at a craft store or at a craft, like a little sale or something, because I'm like, oh, I could make that. I never will, but I could. So at the time, to supplement some of the horse stuff, I had a real job, I had a real career. I was the associate director of the financial aid department at Cornerstone University. And my husband's income obviously paid the real bills. And so I had to get a little side gig going to pay for the horses. So I was sewing show clothes. I couldn't afford the looks that I wanted. So I learned how to sew. I'd always dabbled in sewing, but my mom, who had always been a sewer as well, she sat with me one day in her kitchen and we made the very first show jacket I ever made for my daughter. And so I was making our stuff. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, you make your stuff. That's so cool. Will you make me something? And I was like, sure. So I started with show clothes. And when I launched my business in January 1st of 2016, I was like, hey, I'm making show clothes now. And by the way, I'm also going to color hats. I had never colored a hat, but I was going to do it because I was certain I could do a better job than what I had in my hand already. So I decided, at the time I didn't know she was brush painting them. I thought she must be airbrushing them. So that's where I started. And so I just started practicing. I'd go to a tax sale, and the white hats were going out of style. Nobody wanted a white hat anymore, and everybody had one, and nobody wanted to wear them, and they get dingy and gross, and they just sit in your closet or your basement. And so I just asked people hey, do you have any old hats laying around you don't want? And I could have gotten dozens, hundreds of them, because everybody had one. So I got those. I'd go to a tax sale, pick up anything cheap at the end of the sale. Nobody wants to take hats home, so I just get them cheap at the end of the night and bring them home and start practicing. Bought a little airbrush gig. I've never airbrushed. And just started practicing and just playing with it. And eventually, the colored hat thing became huge. It exploded. Everybody wanted a custom colored hat at an affordable price, which was what I was able to offer them. And everybody already had a light colored hat in their closet that they weren't using. So it was, send me your old hat, so that's not costing you anything, and I'll make it a new color, a better color for $100. So that's how it started. So I was still doing some show clothes. I was doing so many colored hats. And then one of my friends, who was like a rodeo queen pageant, like mom or director, she helps rodeo queens pageant themselves or whatever they do.
Okay.
And so she was working with me a lot to get some colored hats for these rodeo queens. And she goes, hey, I was actually doing one for her daughter, and it was pink. And she's like, hey, would you throw some try throwing some lace on the underside of that and seeing if you can stitch it? And I was like, yeah, sure, I guess I'll try. And so I did. I put some black lace under this pink hat and stitched it with some satin ribbon. And I posted a picture of it, and the internet went wild, and my hat business was officially born.
Wow.
From that point on, everybody wanted me to redo their old hats and make them usable again. And so that was the premise that I started. Send me your hat and I'll make it cool. Your old hat that's sitting in the closet you're not doing anything with, and I'll make it cool. I'll color it, I'll stitch it or whatever. And so it just went crazy. And then eventually, pretty quickly, I didn't sew for anybody anymore. I liked doing the hat stuff more than the sewing anyway, so it worked out really well. And it just, I never would have imagined it would turn into what it turned into as quickly as it did.
Wow, that's awesome. You clearly met a need that people have, or maybe folks that wanted to branch out from the classic, traditional, predictable.
Yeah, and people were really wanting, there is a huge need, and I was showing at a lower level where people were working like me, a second job to pay for their horse thing, and we don't have a lot of extra income. We can't go get that $800 custom hat. We can't get one to match our outfit exactly the way we want, but I did offer them an affordable way to do that. And it was unreal. I'd go to these open shows and look around the pen, like at lunch break, or like, especially probably more in the afternoon break, and see my hats just all over the arena. And it was just so surreal. And it like still gives me goosebumps right now, like, because I've had a couple of those moments. We'll talk about the ranch stuff later, that it's happened, and it's amazing.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, just loving the opportunity to hear your whole journey, because as I was sharing with you before we started recording, like, how is it that we've been to the same horse shows and not met yet? But my husband's going to wonder what happened.
Yes, you might not want to meet me, but
he's like, golly, I need more cat cans in the trailer, honey.
They are addicting. I definitely will have several clients that will confirm that they're addicting, but it's a whole lot better than being addicted to, several other things. So you got to think about
a horse. Cheaper than another horse.
Right. Yeah, that's true too.
Well, let's. I want to make sure that we're giving a good perspective of not only the cowboy hat in general, size and shape and fitting and things like that, but also the perspective of the creative side. So, starting with materials, what materials do you end up working with the most? Like, do you cover all the different materials that we're familiar with, like the felt or straw, beaver blends? Okay.
Yeah. So I do tons of straws, and it's still funny to me that I literally just got a message yesterday. Do you do felt hats? Of course I do felt hats. But I don't know what the ratio would be. I'm kind of looking around. I don't know. I do more straws for sure. Okay. Everything I can do on a straw, I can do on a felt, and vice versa. So, okay. But I stick to my market, my people like me are working so hard and they can't afford the $800, $1,000 hat. So the highest quality felt hat that I carry is a 7X Rodeo King. I can order other ones if somebody wants a 20X. People have gotten a 20X from me. But we've already mentioned Shorties and Brinks and Kendalls. And really, they're out there already for the people that can afford that. And so I don't need to compete with them. And I appreciate what they have. I'm working with a different clientele. And so my nice hat in here is our 7X Rodeo King. And I love that hat because it's still pretty affordable, but it's a step up in quality and in look from, say, my bestseller, which is the 4X wool blend or Angora blend Bailey Lightning. I've sold thousands of those hats. They're my bestseller because they sell. The price has gone up. I think literally when I started, they were $150, and now they're up to like $225 shipped. So over the 9 years I've been in business, but that is still very obtainable for most people. So they can start with their $200 hat, and then we can add a stitching for $80. Or a material and a stitching for $160. So I work on straws and on felts, but I really stick to a certain level of quality. And again, I love a good beaver. They're beautiful, and I like the 7X Rodeo King that's right here. They're a beaver blend. And so it's that step into that level of quality. And I just like the price point. I like how the hat holds its shape and the color variety. So that's what I stick with right now.
Okay. And then maybe you sort of touched on this, but are you selling hats out of your own inventory, or do people send you their hat?
So both. So I already mentioned when I started my business, people were sending me hats, and that I had no inventory. The closest thing to inventory I would get is I would scour the internet, because I wanted to show horses so bad, and I was so broke. So I found a way to make it happen. So I would scour the internet for every good deal I could find. And I would literally find like a tech store or something going out of business online and clearancing out their hats and buy some, scoop them up and sell them right away to people. And then people would send them to me. And then eventually I had somebody reach out to me who was starting a tack business. I wanted to carry hats, but couldn't make the minimum orders. Well, because when you start an account with a business, you have to place your order has to be a minimum amount, and it's like a few $1,000s. And so neither him or I could meet that minimum, but together we could make it happen. So we started doing that, and now it's just really funny to think like every order I place is so far over that minimum. Like, I mean,
Wow.
at the time it was so like it was a struggle. I couldn't meet that minimum, and now it's man, I wish I could place an order that small. So back to your question about will I take hats outside? I absolutely will always do that because that's where I started, and I don't ever want to leave that. And I know that the quote unquote big guys wouldn't do that. I always want to do that for people. So I always want to be able to help people make it in this world, in this industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. How long does it normally take for you to do the work that you do, whether it's from just the underside to stitching or
I get that question all the time. And the answer is it varies. So it totally depends on what I'm doing. I have a couple examples I can show you if you want.
I would love to.
One.
Absolutely.
We can kind of talk about, the different stitchings and stuff and what they are. So I've got a couple here next to me. So this is a brown Rodeo King straw. We've got a leather underlay here with a bronze leather whip stitch. So it's super, super pretty. Something like this doesn't take me as long as you might think it would. I can throw them together pretty quickly. I can get at least a couple done, and I can sit here in the morning and whip out 4 or 5 of them. It just depends. This one is a felt hat, and it's got a buck stitch, but then it's also got the binding and the buck stitch.
Okay.
A fun color, so you can see it good. So that one is going to take me a little bit longer to buck stitch it, and then I got to go upstairs and I got to sew the binding on my machine. So, but not that long. And then I happened to be training. I had to get help eventually because I had so much demand. I was probably still working full time, or at least almost full time, and then trying to show horses. I did pick up a side gig in my financial aid world, so I was doing that. I was getting my college, finishing one of my degrees at some point too, and then also doing this hat thing. So it was crazy. So I eventually hired some help, hired like a neighbor to help me do stitching, and I've had help ever since. So, I mean, that's been for years. And then I just had my current neighbor, she just had to leave me, unfortunately. She's been with me almost 5 years, I think, and I'm just training somebody new. And so I'm helping her learn how to do it. And I was like, listen, this is going to take you a while at first, but I promise you get better and faster. I clearly remember like a buck stitch. I always planned like 45 minutes to do a single row of buck stitch. And then eventually I was like, man, I'm clocking through these pretty good. I should like time myself. And it was taking me like 15, 20 minutes to get through them, So you just when you do it so often, you just get better and faster at them. So yeah, so it varies. Doesn't take me that long, but it's honestly like when I have a wait list, like right now, if you ordered from me, today is June 6th or 7th, you would get a custom hat from me shipped July 11. So part of that is because I'm at the paint world for a while, but even though I can whip the hats out fairly fast, there's so much other parts of the business that take up so much time, like talking to people. I spend most of my days just talking to people online about what they want to order.
So it makes me think about a trip to the horse show. Will you have a booth there?
I get asked that a lot too. Oh, you're going to a horse show. Are you going to have your hats? No, I can't do horse shows and hats at the same time. However, I'll tell you about how I just broke that rule in a minute. I have the hat trailer and I have the horse trailer, and we go, like my daughters are both showing. Haley and Marley are both going to be showing down there. So we are busy, and I love watching my kids show, and I want to be involved in that. So I don't want to work. I don't want to worry about work. I don't even open my laptop sometimes. because I just want to be there. And the paint world specifically, their schedule is so demanding, I don't have time. Could I hire somebody to come run the booth? Probably eventually. I just did that for the first time. We have the All-American Youth Show in Columbus, which is a big youth, it's like an open show. But it's huge. And we had been a few years ago, we'd gone a couple times, and I don't think we'd been there in 3 years, but the girls decided they wanted to go this year. And I knew that that was my market for my hats. I was like, I need to get my hats down there. And so I hired somebody to drive the hat trailer down and work the booth for me. And so I was able to check in with her all day. Every time we were on the way to ring, I'd go right by her and have the kids show in there too. So I don't really want to do that too many times. It worked out really well and the circumstances were just right. But no, for the most part, it's hat show or horse show.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Tell us something that people maybe don't realize about, you mentioned a couple of different quality levels in your hats. What is something that we don't generally know about the difference in quality and maybe how it feels or wears over time?
So I think, and this is where I come back to like being super passionate about making this industry accessible and being one of those quarter horse kids, you know, growing up at showing at that high level that I did. And honestly, I was very fortunate to do that. And I was offered so many opportunities for sure, but I still wasn't one of those people at the very top. You know, I always dreamed of being one of those people. And so I think that a common perception, a lot of us littler people at the lower levels and stuff we have, you know, we're told, we hear trainers say, oh, it's got to be 50 X's. It's got to be 100 X's, or it's just not good enough. It's never going to hold its shape. Mm-hmm. And I am truly here in this business to just break that mold and tell you that's not true. So I can get you a hat for $100 that from a distance doesn't look any different than the $1,000 hat. Okay. Up close, absolutely, we can pick it apart. But you are looking at, you got to think from a judge's perspective. And I like to say the judge cannot see the number of X's on the inside of your hat while you're riding down the rail or even when you're holding your halter horse. So the important thing is, the most important thing is the shape of the hat. And you do want something in style, and we can kind of talk more about that later, but you want it to be in style and you want it to hold its shape well. After that, I really feel like the rest is not necessary. You know, just the excess. Mm-hmm. I love nice things. I love nice things. As my daughter has gotten older, I have snagged some very nice hats for her that I would never carry, you know, because she's not growing anymore. So here, have this nice French tan hat that I just found for a great deal online. You know, that's 40 X's or whatever, because it's great. I love nice things. But there's just places where it's not necessary. It's like silver on the saddle. We all know. We don't need that $20,000 saddle dripping in silver when, you know, like a blue ribbon. I'm a blue ribbon person. You know, yeah, I could buy a $20,000 blue ribbon covered in silver, or I could use this $3,000 basket weave, and I'm going to get the same result. You want the quality, because that does matter. You want the fit. That's important. But the rest of it is just, it's not needed. So I'm just passionate about that. Like, let's get you looking good. That's where my business name comes from, initial impressions. You know, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So, and I want to help you create that. So that's why it's Initial Impressions by HWS. Like, I want to create that initial impression that judge sees of you and get you started off on the right foot. So I want you, when you step in that pen, I want your hat to just look the part. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to cost you $1 million to do that.
Yeah. I love that. In a previous episode, one of the trainers that's been a big supporter of Super Halter had mentioned that the halter, either at one time, I can't remember, I'm not going to try and quote her, but really the essence of what she was saying was halter might be an entry-level class or division for somebody who's just entering the horse world. horse show world. And so many of my guests, as well as exhibitors out there, have started in 4-H or open shows. And what a great product and market where we want to support people and make things available, give easy on-ramps for people. So I love not only the product that you have, but the level of passion that you have for that market and for those people, because we know that our shows are getting smaller at times. It's harder to get youth and families and amateur exhibitors into the pen sometimes.
Absolutely.
So in all divisions, not just halter, in all divisions. So yeah, just appreciate your commitment to that person.
Yeah.
I am one now, and I was when I started in the open shows. So,
yeah. We're super fortunate here in Michigan to have a very robust open show program. Any given weekend I can show in Michigan wherever I want. And the level of quality is exceptional, both from the way the show is put on and run and the quality of the exhibitors and horses that are there. So I'm the current vice president for the Michigan Paint Horse Club, and we are struggling right now. And our biggest competition is those big open shows because frankly, they're more accessible. So every once in a while, we still pop over to one. We went to one this spring, and I felt a lot better coming home after writing that check than I do most weekends. So yeah, we really need to do something to keep it accessible, to make it accessible, because we're just seeing it dwindle and dwindle, and I hate that because I love this industry so much.
Absolutely. Same here. And the product that you sell is in the rule book. We
Correct.
have to wear a hat, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like we can maybe skip the blazer but wear a button-down shirt.
Right.
Or, it's the jeans that we wear on the weekend and wear those at the horse show. We don't have to wear, dress pants or a certain type of jean, but we cannot get away with not wearing a hat. So, yeah, you have an essential tool.
Yes, and I just want it to be accessible for everybody. So, and if Equine Chronicle and Go Horse Show and stuff, they very often put out articles about fashion and from the judge's perspective. And what is the most important thing in every single article that judge will say? I need your hat to look good. Like when you walk in, if your hat is shaped, when you walk in the pen, I know that you're serious or not. And I'm just here to tell you, it doesn't take a lot of money to make sure that happens. So I just want to help people step into that pen looking the best they can and being able to afford it.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of this earlier, but can somebody purchase a hat for you that's just the hat without any custom additions to it?
I get that question a lot. It used to bother me. I was like, what do you mean you just want a plain hat? Are you kidding? And then I learned, right. But then I learned it was fast money. Like, oh, the hat came in and now it's going out. Okay. So yes, you absolutely can buy just a boring plain hat from me anytime you want.
That is not my current plan. However, I think somebody listening might need just a plain hat. But so then tell us, in light of hats, how do you help somebody find the right fit that fits their head?
Yeah, so it can be challenging online for sure. I've made a couple videos that are helpful. I try to post those regularly on my page, and I can share them with people too. One of the most important ones is how to measure your head. Okay. So I usually always start with asking people, do you currently have a hat and what size is it? So hats are like jeans, I always say. Not every size 29 fits exactly the same. We know when we go to the store and we try on a few different pairs of jeans, they might even be the same brand, but they're different styles and they all fit a little bit different. So, I need a 28 in this size, in this style, but a 29 in this style. So hats are similar. I know my hats pretty well. Like I work with them. I love my Rodeo King straws. And this year I got some Twister straws too. I'm looking around to see what else. Bailey straws, my Bailey Lightning and my Rodeo King 7X that I sell so many of. I know them. And I also know how they feel on my head too. So I can pop one on my head. Let's see. So this is 7 1/8. I'm like a 6 7/8. So I can pop this one on my head and I can be like, actually, that really kind of fits like a more like a 7. Like I can just tell. Like that's a little bit more of a 7. It's a little long oval, but so I would probably like if somebody wanted this hat, I would tell them it's probably posted this way on my site already. It probably says it's marked a 7/8, might run a touch small. When they want to buy a new one from me, if they're like, yeah, I'm a 6 7/8, cool. That's what I'm going to make them. I'm going to make a 6 7/8. If it's a 6 7/8, for sure, I'm going to put it on my head and make sure that's what it feels like to me, or something close. But if they aren't familiar with their size, which shockingly a lot of people are not, I'm always surprised at that they have no idea what size they wear. Then I send them a video that shows them how to measure with a tape measure. Then I have a chart, of course, that I compare that measurement to, and we go from there. With the custom work, one of the things I pride myself on is offering a size guarantee. So if you get your custom hat and it doesn't fit, in almost every case, you are able to send that back to me and get a new one that will. So because it does me no good for my business, I don't have like an advertising budget. I'm not out there trying to advertise and stuff. You're my advertisement. And if your hat is sitting in your hat can in your horse trailer closet, it's not doing me any good. So I need you to wear it. So I want you to love it and wear it and show everybody and then tell them where you got it. So you always have a size guarantee with me. We do everything we can here to get something that will fit the person. And then I have another video I share a lot too that shows you how to use like the hat tape and different little tricks to make your hat fit better as well.
Okay. Whew. All the tricks. Sounds like we're going to be sending people to the website pretty regularly.
Yeah, the best thing, honestly, I love it when I can work with somebody in person, because there's no better feeling when you can work with someone in person and who always says, like, I just can never find a hat that fits. All right, let's do that. Well, come to find out, this is the most common problem. People have a round head and they make all these hats an oval and long oval. Well, with a steamer, it literally takes me 2 seconds to change that hat from oval to round and fit this person's head. And they're like, oh my gosh, it fits. This is amazing. So yeah. I love it when I can do it in person, but I don't travel that often with the hat stuff. So I don't get to do that as much as I wish I could.
Yeah, it makes sense. So can you walk us through different shapes of the crowns and the brims? And you mentioned, the judge's first impression and the shape of the hat. Tell us what we need to know about that.
Yeah, so in our industry, which I'm referring to as like our stock horse, our pates, our quarters, we're looking at seeing pretty much the same thing every time. So we're going to see a cattleman's crease on the top, and also the words are different wherever you go. So I might say something and you're like, that's not what I thought it was. Well, it's probably because someone else told you something else. So bear with me. Most of the hats that we're going to see in our little world are going to have a cattleman's crease on the top, and they can vary ever slightly, but where we've got the long center line and then the 2 pinch sides in the front. So, and then we like to see, for the most part, a quarter horse crease in the brim. So on this one, and also people always ask me for more pictures of hats, and it drives me crazy because I send the best picture of the hat that I can. And when you take a hat like straight on view, the pictures never really do them justice. They always make them look way wider than they are in real life. So if you're looking at this and be like, oh, that's way too wide for a quarter horse crease, just trust me. So we have it nice and square, and sometimes we call it high and tight. I get super offended if you call it a taco, because I don't sell junk food. So to me, every once in a while you do see a taco, and that is not what you want. A taco looks the same front to back, and that is not pretty. So I like just referring it to as a quarter horse crease or high and tight. I have had clients name it bitchy or extra bitchy. So the extra bitchy it is. So that was kind of fun. Now with men, recently in the last couple of years, we have seen a little bit of a trend in the pleasure. I don't think it's really leaked over into the halter quite as much, but we have seen some of the pleasure guys get the bigger brims. So a little bit bigger brim and shaped a little bit wider than a typical quarter horse crease. I tend to see our halter guys still in a pretty high and tight, nice square front look. Now, when we get to the ranch world, which is a huge part of my business, Anything goes, and I love it. It's not all the same. We are so cookie cutter in our little stock horse world that it drives me crazy. And then that makes people think they always have to be cookie cutter. And so I built my whole business on looking different than everybody else. So I love the ranch people because literally you can do anything you want. So I didn't really have any good examples here because everybody wants the same thing of different crown styles. But you will see at the ranch shows some brick crowns, even some round and different style crowns that you just don't see, some flat tops even. My youngest daughter was doing some ranch stuff for a couple of years, and we put a flat brim hat on her. And then I gave the flat brim hat to who I consider like my niece. And she went to the Congress last year, the year before, in the small fry ranch stuff. And they just ate her up in that flat brim hat. And they use it for their marketing all the time. So that's awesome.
I love it. Yeah,
so anything goes in the ranch. And I feel like people embrace being a little bit different there.
Sure.
The brim style. So if you look at some pictures from the 70s and 80s, man, are the hats different looking. The number 1 and 2 differences are the crown height and the brim size. Totally, we have flipped totally opposite. They used to be literally the 10-gallon hats with the super tall crowns and then these itty bitty short little brims, which of course is ridiculous to us today. Now we have moved to shorter crown styles, which are much more flattering, and a larger brim style. You really don't want to be showing these days with a brim shorter than 4 inches. 4 1/4 being a little bit more preferred, and just my Bailey Lightning has a 4-inch brim, and I sell the most of that. I consider my step up, the 7X Rodeo King, has a 4 1/4 brim, and I do think it makes it just a little bit different and a little bit higher quality in the style area. So it just gives it a little bit more style, that little bit bigger brim. And then, of course, like a little bit shorter crown. People do get hung up on the crown height all the time. I get asked, well, is it a tall crown? No, why would I carry a tall crown? Nobody wants a tall crown. But I used to get one of the Rodeo King. We can order them in different crown heights and styles. And I was getting this super low because everybody wants super low. Well, guess what? It was so low, it didn't really fit anybody. Mm-hmm. So it was hard to fit, and people get real hung up on the crown. It's got to be low, 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 which, yes, I agree with you. However, when I get it as low as you want it to look, then it doesn't fit anybody. So you got to have room for your noggin in that crown. So, and I can always make some adjustments to the crowns as well. So a lot of my Bailey Lightnings have a little bit taller crown. They're like at a 4 1/4. Usually like 4 1/4 is pretty normal. They're almost pushing 4 1/2, which is a little bit higher than most people want. So I'll usually just steam those down a little bit. My Rodeo Kings are 4s. I was feeling like grabbing a tape measure for this one a second. Let's see what this one is. Yeah, so it's like 4 1/4. That's exactly what you want. So, and I really like this crown a lot. If you're not used to wearing hats, they always look huge on you. And so I do have people like, oh, they just look so big on me. And it's just because you're not used to it, honestly. And then outside of our show world and our ranch show world, if you go to the rodeo world, they are wearing like the 5-inch brims. They're enormous. So they have gone total opposite of that little 3 1/2-inch brim from the 80s. And they're wearing huge ones. They're shaped super wide. The crowns are open in a lot of cases, or what we call a little punchy, where they've just got a couple like divots in the side. So there are so many different hat styles to choose from. And when people come to me, sometimes like I'll ask them when they're ordering, how do you want it shaped? And sometimes they don't know. And thankfully I do. So just tell me where you show, what you show, and then I'll get it shaped right for you. The ranch people, when I started with going to my very first ranch show, nobody wore the quarter horse crease, almost like no one. You'd have a couple people that would sneak in, like Tommy Sheets, for example, who's in Indiana, and I'd be at Cloverdale. Of course, he's a quarter horse guy, so he'd come with a couple ranch horses and he'd have his hat shaped that way. But for the most part, they were slightly offended by the quarter horse crease at first. Okay. Then after a year into their lives, they change. So you'll see everything at the ranch from a nice tight quarter horse crease to a flat brim.
Okay.
It's a lot.
Well, it is. And then I have the benefit of sitting here with you having this conversation, knowing what I have coming up in my show season and the need that I might have for a new hat. And am I brave enough to step out of my comfort zone, which my comfort zone is highly influenced by what I think is either expected, preferred, on trend.
Yep.
I do miss in the halter, I tend to dress pretty conservatively. I do miss bling that I used to have in showmanship. When I started in open shows, I showed in the halter and showmanship because I loved the in-hand work, and I miss the bling of the showmanship, but there's not a huge place for that.
And the same with the ranch as well. Bling is actually not allowed there. Sure. And so people now, everybody loves fashion, like really, truly. I mean, I know some guys and even some girls that like don't care, but we do. We care how we look. And so we will find ways to make things fun. And so with the ranch people, they have grabbed on to the custom hats and to the saddle pads. Like that's what, I mean, they go wild with their saddle pads and their hats because everything else has to be pretty conservative. Yes, you are stuck in that little niche world with where those trainers are saying you have to have a 50X black hat. And I have moms that come to me that are like, I don't know what to do. I can't afford this hat. And my kid is 10 and they might grow out of it. And I'm like, how about this 7X Rodeo King that will look exactly the same, And so it is hard because there is an expectation by certain people that it has to be this. You have to wear a black coat in the equitation. You have to wear black chaps if you want to be taken seriously. And it's just not the case. The judges don't care. There is a score sheet. And I always say there's not a spot on the score sheet for that. So what you have to do is have the overall look. So you've got the look. So like we know in halter, they don't really care about you, frankly. They're looking at the horse. Sure. They should be, at least. But
it's true. Yeah.
But your image is going to project on the horse. If you come in with this amazing looking horse and you're looking all like a slob, it's going to be hard to take you seriously and your horse. Okay. So to some degree, yes, you must come in looking at appropriate level. But beyond that, there's no score sheet. There's no spot on the score sheet for that. So there's no spot for that judge to look and be like, her hat was great. The whole picture was awesome, but I just didn't like the sparkles on her shirt. There's not a spot on the scorecard for that. So, obviously people have opinions and they are able to use them in some ways sometimes. But at the end of the day, if you talk to judges, I have the chance I have so many friends that are judges. And having stepped into that world very briefly, I've communicated with so many. And at the end of the day, they don't care about so many things that we care about. And, they are just there to do their job, follow the score sheet. They want to see a good presentation. And that's what's important to them. It's not how many crystals are on your jacket.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Like I've shared with you the opportunity for people to come into the horse show world. We want to make as many entry points as possible and helping to normalize not only individuality, but following the rule book and yet being realistic about what really matters.
Right. Yes.
It's good. It's good. So trends and style, we've covered that a little bit, but are there any other trends that you see in whether it's the purely fashion side of cowboy hats or the show side, anything that you either see current or coming in style?
We should probably chat about the fact that I used to color millions of hats a year and now I don't do any. The colored hat trend has dissipated quite a bit. You certainly still see them. They're certainly still acceptable, but for a hot second, everybody had one. We were living in the 80s all over again, just with shorter crowns and bigger brims. And And that has transitioned. I've seen it gone more towards your warm and your natural colors, your camels, your French tans, pecans, though, and your natural color. Those have become so much more popular. I'm seeing a downward trend on the black hat specifically. Everybody needs a good black hat. That's kind of, everyone needs a good little black dress. But so the black hat is always your go-to. But nowadays, I think it's so much more common to see people lighten up their dark looks with a natural or a French tan colored hat instead of black. Mm-hmm. They're not dressed. Very rarely do you see someone dressed in all black these days. Black chaps are still by far the most popular color chaps because it's a great basic color you can build off of. So that's, whenever we have somebody coming into the industry and mom needs to buy their kids stuff, we always start with the black chaps because you can build off of those. But yeah, we're seeing now the black hats. I mean, they're still fine. Black hats are in. I don't want anybody to think I'm saying black hats are not in, but those natural colors have just really taken hold. My daughter is going to wear a rust hat with her black outfit. She's never worn black before because I hate looking like everybody else. So my kids were never allowed to wear black. So she's actually at the World Show. She's going to wear black for the first time ever, but we're pairing it with a rust hat. So giving it a little bit different look, keeping it from being super dark. And the hat happens to match her horse perfectly. And we love that.
So that was actually my next question. Talk to us about matching either the hat to the horse, the hat to the outfit, or from something I remember, maybe it's not even correct, that if when in doubt, go lighter with the hat rather than darker.
Yeah, that's something you definitely.
Your hat should match your boots. I don't even know. I might be mixing what I wear to work.
No, people have, it's like, don't wear white after Labor Day. People have their little quips and things that they say and do, and it just comes down to what do you feel comfortable in. I personally have always been that black hat person where if I've got black chaps on back in the day, black chaps, black hat. I was just always a dark person. I have a good friend of mine, never wears her black hat. She has black chaps, but she always wears a lighter color hat. And she came from a trainer in a barn that I know super well. And that's really like the theme there, lighter on the top, a lighter look, So it's really what you're comfortable with. Obviously, both look good. But they thought they were more into the light hat on top. So like I said, going with, a French tan or something. Back in the day, it was the white hat, the white or the silver belly. And now we're warmer colors. So we're into the like French tans and the pecans and stuff. So that's good. Matching the horse. I do always get a little bothered when people get hung up on matching their outfit colors to their horse. Because, how have you ever been at a horse show where you've been like, I've been to a lot of horse shows in my life, and I just don't think I've really ever sat. I love fashion. I love outfits. I'm always looking at them, and I'm like, that color just does not go good with that horse. Like, maybe you have, but it's not really a thing. People used to tell me like you couldn't wear red on a sorrel. Oh my God. Have you ever worn red on a sorrel? Because it actually can look really awesome. Like I could show you some really cool pictures of a friend that did that. So, people just have so many little things they got hung up on. Just do what you love. We happen to I had this Rust Rodeo King hat, and my daughter, we had bought her a 2-year-old, and we were showing him for the first time. I think we took him to an open show, and she was taking him in the halter. And it was super casual. So she just threw on she had like a CR shirt or something that was kind of tan. I was like, oh, I've got this Rust hat in the trailer. Why don't you wear that with it? And so she did. And we were like, hey, that hat looks awesome with that horse. Like he's bay, that really pretty red bay. It's gorgeous. And it just really popped. It was like, okay, we need to make an outfit around this hat. And so I did. So I made her a showmanship outfit that was a navy base, but had rust accents that matched the hat. And the hat looks great with a horse. Now we've transitioned to black. So she's got some black outfits with the rust and still wearing that rust hat because it just happens to look really great with that horse. So there's absolutely going to be times when things look great with a certain horse. Things look better. Jewel tones look great on Palominos, for example. But black looks great on a Palomino too. So, you don't get too hung up on it, but do some things look better? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, especially helping people break out of their mold, or those that don't have familiarity at all. So, how much influence do you see the outside world having on your business? Like, I recently had a conversation with a tack shop, and often they get customers who are coming in who are just going to a concert. They don't even have a horse, have never touched a horse. So do you have any customers that are in that realm, or how much influence do you find?
I'm reaching over to grab one of the number one hats I do for non-horse people, and it's a Louis Vuitton hat. It's the Louis Vuitton print that non-horse people eat up. And I had no idea that would ever be a thing. And I'm trying to think how I even ever did my first one with that print. I don't even remember, but I've done a bunch since. And horse people like them too. But yeah, like my girl that was just working for me, she ran my TikTok page because I'm old and I refuse to do TikTok. And every time she posts one of those Louis Vuitton hats, I get messages, non-horse people going to the rodeo. They're going to the Houston Livestock Show, and they've never owned a cowboy hat in their life, and they want that Louis Vuitton cowboy hat. So, yeah, so you definitely get a little outside influence like that, for sure.
It makes sense. So, you've showed us a couple of pictures of stitching and then design work. What kind of options do people have there, or customizations?
So I literally tell the people that the options are endless, because they are. There are millions, and it's almost overwhelming. So yeah, I showed you a buck stitch, and I showed you a whip stitch, the leather, and then this one hat that I happened to grab a second ago had a binding, but also has the little studs on the binding. This one has the material on the top, instead of on the bottom. People always are like, what's better? Whatever one you like better, that's the answer. So it doesn't matter. This is my signature hat here. So it's the black straw hat with the black tooled underlay and the black ribbon whip stitch. And then this is the same thing in brown. That's my signature hat. It's called that because it's the most common one. It's the most popular style. I used to hate it when people would order it because, again, I built my business on looking different than everybody else. And I'm like, why do you want the hat? That person already has it. Or, I've already done a bunch of those. But then finally I embraced it. And I was like, you know what? Okay, we're just going to call this my signature hat then, because I sell so many of them, and it is. And so every once in a while, I actually just had one recently. You'll see me have a signature hat sale. Usually means I've got a bill to pay. So, but
I love it.
So you can choose your material, you can choose your stitching or your binding. We can do crystals. I built this business on never saying no. So people would ask me, can you do a buck stitch on a felt hat? Sure. Do I have any idea how? No, but I'm going to find out before this date that I told you I would. So I never would say no. People Louis Vuitton, can you do Louis Vuitton on a hat? Yeah, sure, I probably can. And can you do, the best question I ever got early in my business was, can we do superhero hats? And I died. And I was like, please let me do superhero hats for your 3 boys. So,
oh my gosh.
Yes. So that was so fun. So then and everything, was hot for a second. So then I was doing hero hats like crazy. We were doing Wonder Woman and Batman and the Green Lantern and Spider-Man and everything. And I was having so much fun. It's so much fun when you get to do different things. I get annoyed when everybody wants the same one because it's doing the same one. So it's like a little extra fun when we get to do something fun like that. People would ask, can I do my ranch brand on the side? Sure. How? I don't know. I'll figure it out. So we'd play around with different decals or leather engraving and stuff. And so, right now I have a couple that want hats for their wedding. So we're
Oh, I love that.
for their wedding. They want to have their names and the date burned on the brim on the underside. So I'm going to learn how to do that. I just don't say no. I have hundreds. I'm looking around here. I know you guys can't see what I'm looking at, but I'm looking around and I see hundreds of options of vinyls and leathers that you can pick from. People, I have learned, people really love, well, I'll start this way. Not everybody is as creative as I am. And I don't think I'm a creative genius, but I apparently have enough vision to see things. So I can look at this hat, I can look at this material and be like, oh, that'll look great together. And I just know. It's shocking to me. Not everybody's like that. Some people just have no vision. It's not their fault, but they just don't have that creative vision. So when I'm explaining something to them, they can't see it. So that can be very challenging. Thankfully, most people trust me. They're like, if you think it'll look good, it'll be fine. I'm like, I would tell you if it wouldn't. So thankfully, there's that. But most people really want something they've already seen, is what I've learned. Also, a little contrary to how I wanted my business to go, because I just like being individual and unique. But for the most part, I'm going to, and this really clicked this week again, too. It happens ever so often. I'm going to sell more hats if I say, hey, you can have this hat in these sizes for this price, instead of saying you can have whatever you want, or if I post, like this week is a perfect example. I'm getting a big order of Rodeo King straws in, so I wanted to get some off my shelf, so I've got room. So I need to get some of these hats sold. So I tried posting some plain straw hats the way they are. I did shape them, so at least they look, because everyone will, no kidding, ask, do you shape them? No, they're just gonna be flat and ugly. Of course I shape them. So I shaped them up, took pictures, and said, okay, here's the plain brown Rodeo King hat. I have these sizes available, and you can do any of these options. And I threw a few out there. You can do whatever you want, because I want people to embrace the fact that they can choose whatever they want. But they're going to send me a picture and they're going to say, I want this hat. So it's really easier if I just post a picture of this hat and say, okay, I want to get rid of these brown Rodeo King straws. It's going to be easier if I say, hey, you can have this look for $325 or whatever the sale price is going to be that day, instead of saying you can have this and have it look however you want, because people just don't actually really grasp that. Some people do. It's awesome, but not everybody can. So that's how I sell them a little bit differently sometimes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially if I just had a very brief conversation with somebody on Facebook, somebody that's new and curious about the halter and wanting to get back in to the show pen, and a bunch of people were making recommendations on what to wear. And I said, go get to your first show and then look around, because whether or not you prescribe to wearing what other people wear, it at least is a very easy place for inspiration, where you can also see that some people wear clearly a Western blazer and a Western style shirt, but also folks are wearing a blazer from Goodwill, Marshalls, TJ Maxx, Shein, Amazon, with a sleeveless button-down shirt that is cooler in the summer. There's a lot of variation and flexibility. So
someone will sneak in there with their $4,000 showmanship jacket.
Right?
So, yeah.
Which are gorgeous, and they weigh so much. They're so heavy.
Yes.
It's like wearing a weighted vest for a workout. Like, just wear your showmanship jacket. They're gorgeous, and I love that bling. But at the same time, I feel like I have so many more choices in the halter, even though it's basically the same outfit, just mixing it up a little bit. But
and what I will say too about the hats, there is a time and a place for the custom hats. I absolutely think that. I would not recommend this hat here. And for those of you that can't see, it's a brown Rodeo King straw. It's got a really pretty leather design on the sides and a bronze leather whip stitch. It's gorgeous. Might not even be as pretty on the video as it is in person. That hat is not appropriate for horsemanship. Okay. It's just not. And could you wear it in a horsemanship class at an open show? Sure, absolutely, it'd be fine. Do you want to wear that at a quarter horse show? I mean, you could, and the judge probably isn't going to care, but it's really not exactly appropriate. There's a time and a place for some of this. The halter, I would say, is a free for all. I think that's a time you can really you can express yourself through your hat. You know, you might not feel it as appropriate to wear your super blingy showmanship jacket. We know that's not seen as much in the halter, but you could really bling up a little bit with your hat. People will ask, so different things like, what can I wear in the showmanship for a custom hat? Well, typically, the most I'll really recommend for showmanship and horsemanship is like a buck stitch, like a single buck stitch, maybe a binding and a buck stitch. Try to keep it, tone it down a little bit. We want an overall pretty just picture. We don't need anything popping out at us. Where in the halter, the trail, the Western riding, the pleasure, we can bling it up a little bit. Have a little bit more fun with it, and it's a little bit more acceptable there. So yeah, I think in the halter, you have a chance. And I do have some people that I've really grabbed onto. I've just got this plain blazer and this plain shirt underneath. I want a fancy hat. And then they go kind of all out on their hat. So I love that.
Yep. Yes, the wheels are turning.
Yeah. So we might have to start you out with just a buck stitch to just work you in.
Okay.
Trend, so you can just one step at a time. It's okay. We'll get you to something blingy and fancy someday, but no, you can do it. You can do our step program into, we'll start you with a nice conservative buck stitch, and then we'll move you up to a whip stitch later or something.
Love it. The step program.
Yes.
So tell us about your favorite hat, or maybe the story behind it.
I don't know if I could possibly have a favorite hat, but a fun one that I certainly got to work on fairly early in my career was having a friend of mine and a client to a trainer friend of mine. She was an avid hunter, and she killed a gator and got the hide and sent it to me to put on a hat. So I got to, so I have this very cool picture of her with the gator that she killed, and then I have the pictures of the hats. I actually did 2 hats for her out of the hide, and sent them to her. So that was super fun, and she had given me like free reign on just whatever. I had enough to do 1 full hat, so like I think we put the hide on the top of the hat, so that would be like the full brim, and then the other hat, I didn't have another piece big enough to do another full brim, so we did some really cool cutouts, some cutout designs on the side in the gator, and so that's pretty freaking cool, I think.
That's pretty amazing. You shot the gator, first of all,
right?
And be able to transfer that guy right onto a hat. I love it. That's cool.
So lots of cool things like that, and then probably my other favorites are my dad's old hat or my grandpa's old hat stories. Like those ones like choke people up, because I can take a hat that is outdated but sentimental in value, and I've been able to restyle some of those into something that they can wear, and that's so cool. One particular one I really remember, it was an old hat, so it had the taller crown and the shorter brim, so it wasn't something we could really make appropriate for the horse show arena, but we styled it into like a fashion hat. So we reshaped the crown into kind of like a flat, like a stovepipe type crown, and then flattened the brim. And pretty sure we decorated the brim somehow a little bit, and then made it this cute little hat she could literally wear every day. And that was cool. And I mean, she cried because it was her dad's old hat, and it's just been in a box collecting dust, and now it's out there and everybody can see. So those are my favorite too.
So cool. I love it. So some last pieces of advice for our listeners. If somebody's investing in their first custom hat, what are some top priority pieces of advice that you would give?
We just get that hat measurement, and then we have to consider, okay, is this custom hat going to be for a specific outfit, or do we want it to be able to go with many things? So I'm going to have a hard time matching this hat to a whole lot of things. It's going to go great with brown chinks and tans. But it's got a little bit of a denim blue in it, so it's not going to match everything. So we can really go with something custom. And that's where the signature hats, why they're so popular, because they go with everything. So the all brown, if you're a brown person, the all black, if you're a black person. So a black clothing wearing person. So you are able to take those and then just keep them for years and wear them with so many different outfits. So there's that. That's probably the first thing is, am I making this hat for a specific outfit, or am I making it to go with many things? And then another fun little tip is, if you decided, say we took like our signature black hat, and instead of the black ribbon, we did like purple ribbon, because you've got a purple blazer and you're wearing it at the World Show, and you want it to coordinate and look super cute. Well, the cool thing is we can stitch this in purple, but then later when you're done with your purple blazer and you're moving on, we can change the stitching to a different color. So we could always go to black later, or maybe your next blazer is red. So we swap it out and we make it red. So we're able to do that with the stitching. Once you put the materials on the hats, they're on there. They don't come off. So we can't really change those out. But the stitching is really interchangeable. So that's super fun to have that option. And then you're not spending the whole, it costs a little bit of money to restitch it, but it's not, the whole hat. So you save a bunch. So that's really nice.
Yeah. Feels like you could maybe get a whole nother season out of a hat.
Yeah. And people,
a new hat.
Correct. And people get a little hesitant about going with something that has a pop of color, because then they feel tied to it. And they know it will look great with their outfit now, but then, we don't keep the same outfit for very long sometimes. So that's, people love it when they find that out.
Okay. So some last details about your business. Where can listeners find you online? And then do you have your travel schedule for where people can see you? Is that available as well?
So I don't travel very much. Okay. I tend to, I only have a couple shows a year that I go to, because in the past I've been so busy with my kids' horse showing. So there really weren't a whole lot of free weekends for me to go vendor. I used to always go to the Ranch World Show. That's on a hiatus this year. So we have this year off. Hopefully that'll revive next year. Go to that. Sometimes in the fall, I go to a big ranch show. And then I always do the Michigan Horse Expo in the spring. Now that my oldest daughter, it's her last year of youth, she's going to be more involved with college and real life. I think, I say this and I'm sure I'll have friends laugh, I think we'll be showing less. So I can't even say it with a straight face. I think we'll be showing less. And so I do want to kind of get on the road a little bit more and do some more shows. So I will always post that on my Facebook page when I know I'm going somewhere. Facebook, it's the place to come find me. I hopefully will have a website this summer. Frankly, I've had so much business just off the one platform that I haven't needed any of the other platforms really. Yeah. And like a website gets complicated because, okay, so how am I going to set my website up? Do you build your own hat? I like talking to the people. I like knowing who the hat is for and what it's for and the outfit it's going to match. And I like the process of building it because it is a custom piece. So with a website, you lose that personal connection a little bit. But sure, I would sell more hats if I just posted them online for sale. So we are going to build a website this summer and finally get that. But for now, Facebook is where to find me and message me for a custom hat. My phone number is also posted on my business page, and you're welcome to call. So
okay. Well, thank you for educating us and for inspiring us to add a little bit of sass or pizzazz to our outfits this summer and show season. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. See you on the road.